Hey there, listener. Corey Andrew Powell here, and I'm excited to share that Motivational Mondays is now sponsored by BetterHelp. Feeling stressed or anxious? Well, BetterHelp brings you online therapy that's convenient and affordable. NSLS members get 50% off your first month of BetterHelp when you sign up at betterhelp.com/NSLS or click the link in the show notes. Start your journey to better mental health today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Motivational Mondays, the podcast presented by the National Society of Leadership and Success, where we're now impacting over 2 million members strong. I'm your host, Corey Andrew Powell, and today we have an incredibly insightful guest joining us, Mr. Rich Holman. Rich's career spans across several industries, including real estate, investment banking, publishing, and of course, he's best known for his transformative personal journey and his dedication to exposing the dangers of sugar. In his book, Killing You Softly, Rich shines a light on sugar as one of the world's biggest health threats and how its widespread consumption is at the heart of so many chronic diseases. So let's get the conversation started. Rich, welcome to Motivational Mondays.
Thank you so much, Corey. It's great to be here. And I'm sitting here in Medellin, Colombia. Been here 18 years and another beautiful springtime day. Just thank you for letting me reach out to your listeners.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And you are exemplary. You're living the life. I want to just make sure everyone knows you are a healthy, vibrant, active 80-year-old who is like living like your best life right now. And so it's inspirational for any of us who hope to have that same longevity. So we'll begin talking about your personal story. And it's remarkable. But can you take us back to the time when you were actually battling like a metabolic syndrome, and your health was not really where you wanted it to be?
Yes, I found out about 8 years ago that I was dying. I was diagnosed with full-blown metabolic syndrome, and I had very high blood pressure, 160 over 100. I had aches and pains, fatigue, low energy, uh, and my feet were swollen. In fact, in my book, I only have two pictures in my book. Let me just show you this. But that right there was my feet for 2 or 3 years, swollen, about the size of elephant feet.
Hmm.
And then later, I found out by an accident 8 years ago, sugar might be the problem. I quit sugar and processed foods, and 7 days later, that's my feet. They went
Hmm.
normal in 7 days. And by day 21, no sugar, no processed foods, no booze. I dropped 22 pounds. Blood pressure went normal. Everything went normal. And I went to my doctor. I said, what's going on here? Because they had me on pills. Doctors are trained to give you pills.
Hmm.
They gave me diuretics, blood pressure meds, statins, all the regular stuff. And I was like, what the heck just happened? All I did was quit sugar, and nobody told me. So that started me on my journey for the next 8 years. All these books behind me, about 35 of them, I've read all those, hundreds and hundreds of articles, podcasts, 100, 200 hours of everything. And I finally figured out what's going on and published my book. And it's just, it's amazing how we've been lied to by the establishment, by the people who make money. And I've come not to really trust our government anymore for anything they say, because it's always the money's always behind it, whether it's getting us into wars, screwing up our food, treating us the wrong way, not helping us with preventive medicine. It's unbelievable what my 8 years has, what I've discovered.
Hmm.
At age 80, I'm on no prescribed medication. I'm very, very healthy. Work out 4 or 5 days a week. I run, I do Pilates, I do, just everything. And most people, when they're my age, are sick. They're with doctors, they're with hospitals, but they're eating crap. So
Hmm.
that's basically how I got from A to B. I still have my real estate company here, but my passion is to try to tell people and get them to understand the truth about sugar and processed foods.
Hmm. Well, that's wonderful advice because I know that so many people really have not taken the time really to look at ingredients when it comes to like the prepared and processed foods. And anybody that wants to really know what Rich is talking about, just go to your grocery store, I would say, and read the back of labels, which is what I began to do years ago. And it's kind of terrifying. You pick up something that looks like a simple can of, I don't know, maybe spinach. I don't know. But you turn it over and it's like got these chemical names and phosphorus, phyphophilus. And I'm like, what plant did that come from? Well, it didn't in most cases. So when it comes to that, do you think it's more about the advocacy of people just knowing how to read labels might be a benefit to the consumers?
Well, anything that has a label on it should immediately be suspect. They don't put labels on fruits and vegetables and grass-fed beef and chicken and eggs and butter and nuts. They don't have, there's no labels there. So if it's got a label, you should be suspect. And 80% of the food in your supermarkets in the United States are processed foods. They got labels on it. And the industry purposely wants you to keep you confused. There's 50 different names for sugar. How are you supposed to know all the different names for sugar? And other things, other chemicals, other things that they put in the food. And it's unbelievable how bad it is and how sick we're getting. But I like, if you don't mind, I like to go back because most people don't have a clue about the history of sugar. So it'd be okay. I'd like to just spend a
Yes,
minute or two
please,
to tell you
sure.
what happened. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Um,
Absolutely.
you can research this, but 200,000 years ago, we had what's called Homo sapiens. It was the evolvement of mankind. And for 199,500 years, Homo sapiens weren't eating sugar. A little fruit occasionally, maybe a little bit of honey, but there was no sugar. And when they started finding a way to process it in the medieval times, it was very expensive. They did it over in India. They shipped it to Europe. It cost more than caviar. And the only people who could afford to eat sugar were the kings, the bishops, the dukes, the popes, And you could see pictures, right? You remember your history books, their big old fat faces. They had gout. They had no idea. But they were the only ones who could afford to get sick from sugar. But you have to go a little bit more forward to 150 years ago. The Industrial Revolution started, and they started a way to process sugar. But it didn't really go mainstream yet. It didn't really get into all the people's food because you had World War I, World War II, and you probably remember the term sugar rationing. So sugar didn't really come out until about after the Second World War. And it really came out, they started putting it into processed food and TV dinners and fast foods. That's when all the fast food companies started. I was born in 44, so it was about when I was growing up. I'm part of the first generation of sugar addicts in the United States. We're now moving into the fourth generation. We're third right now, but moving to the fourth. So it started getting into our food supply. And sugar is a perfect drug because it tastes good. It adds bulk to food. You can cook it. It preserves it. And it's more addictive than cocaine. And it's just people don't know it. And I don't think the industries really thought back in 1950 they were poisoning people. I think they just, oh, this works. People are buying more, but more and more in the food. But it just kept growing and growing and growing. And one other thing that happened along the way that sort of makes this thing even worse is in the early 1900s, the richest man in the world, the richest man in history, found a way to incorporate pharmaceuticals and oil. That was John D. Rockefeller. When the antitrust department was breaking up his empire, he found a way to apply pharmaceuticals and oil. And he came up with what's called allopathic medicine. This is the medicine being used by the doctors today. It's basically they're taught to give you pills and surges for whatever's bothering you. And what Rockefeller did, he had a guy named Abraham Flexner, and by the way, all this information is on Google. Flexner came up from Germany, did this big report, and they poo-pooed holistic medicine, preventive medicine, Eastern medicine, and said, you got to give out pills. You got to, So when you go to a doctor, I'll bet you this right now. Last time you've been to the doctor, the first question the doctor should ask is what? It should be, what did you eat for lunch? What did you eat for dinner? What's in your kitchen? No, because that's preventative. Food is medicine. If you're eating poison like sugar and processed foods, you're going to be sick. But the doctors aren't trained that way. They're trained specifically to make money giving out pills and treating the symptoms of sugar addiction, not the cause. So then we move in to the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Well, another bad thing happened to us along the sugar journey. Big tobacco was under attack. Now, I remember when I was like 8 years old, 7 years old, black and white TV, there's no color TVs. Gunsmoke was on. There's an advertisement. The doctor comes out. More doctors prefer Camels. You got a stethoscope. It's like,
Oh
oh
yeah.
man. So I couldn't wait to smoke my Joe Camel fake cigarette. In the 80s, when they started breaking up tobaccos and suing them, they just said, where are we going to make money? And in the 80s and 90s, they did the biggest leverage buyout. RGR and Nabisco tobacco companies actually bought 3 processed food companies. So they moved from Joe Camel, addicting kids, to Tony the Tiger. So they took all their marketing principles and all their fake science and to make more money with processed foods. And it all starts with our government. The USDA is the one that sets the dietary guidelines for the United States. The USDA is the one that came up with a food pyramid. Food pyramid said, eat all the grain, cereals, white stuff down here, but don't eat meat, butter, and eggs. Well, meat, butter, and eggs you can eat. The crap in the bottom is what's killing you. But 80% of the members of the guideline committee for the USDA are on the payroll of Big Pharma, Big Food, and Big Health. So we got bad advice about the food pyramid. And then you look at the USDA subsidies. They subsidize farmers to grow certain things. 82% of the subsidies are to grow corn, wheat, soya, sugar, and rice. These are the ingredients that Big Food buys cheaply, strips out the nutrients, and puts it in the processed food.
As fillers.
And sugar and processed food is not food. So it starts there, and then they deliver all these sick people into the system of Big Pharma and Big Health. And last year, that was $4.3 trillion just for healthcare alone.
I do wonder, though, when it comes to the idea people have about moderation, for example. Are you saying it should be completely cut out? Or is it a matter of moderation? And what does moderation even look like in that regard?
Well, that's a great question. And when I talk to people about, quitting sugar, they look at me, oh, well, maybe I'll just sort of cut back. Well, it's the same thing you say to a cocaine addict. Hey, maybe you should cut your cocaine back. Maybe cut your fentanyl back. Maybe cut your hair. I mean, sugar, and it's proven in my book, it's proven in all these books here. Sugar is poison to your body. And let me just, I won't get too heavy into science, but sugar, whatever of those 50 types of different names of sugar, it's really comprised basically of glucose and fructose. 2 things. One of those 2 things is a poison. When you have poison in your body, it goes to your liver. The liver has to metabolize it. So the fructose goes to the liver. The glucose, excess glucose has a whole nother series of problems, but the fructose has a lot of bad stuff. And just the simplest things that these things do to your body is, they trigger insulin response. They lower your leptin, which is a hormone that tells you you're full. They also decrease your energy, which sends a signal to eat more. So you're getting all these signals. You're getting fatter, you're getting hungrier, eating more. And meanwhile, it doesn't protect your liver. It doesn't feed your gut biome where 1 trillion bacteria live, and it doesn't support your brain. So this is what's going on with our bodies, why we have all these chronic diseases. And the one thing you don't hear much about is your 1 trillion bacteria in your gut, in your stomach. If you don't feed those guys, they get hungry. They're going to eat something. What they're going to eat is the interior of your mucili and then your interior wall. Then you have leaky gut, and this stuff goes into your system, and then you have compromised immune system, as well as all the problems of the brain. And it's all connected. And it's just so simple. Because if you just eat real food, exercise, and sleep, you can be in your 80s like me and just be having a great life and be in good health. It's that basic. But people just don't get it. We've been so brainwashed and lied to. And now you got sugar, which is more addictive than cocaine. So do you eat it in moderation? I don't have any sugar in my house. I go out to a restaurant, it may seep into a sauce, but at least in a very small amount, it's not going to hurt me. But I don't eat it on purpose.
Yeah, you avoid it.
But I just feel so sad for people that they don't get it, they don't understand it, and it's getting sicker and sicker.
It's interesting you mentioned the sauce because I just saw a graphic online, and I mean, you have to be always careful about this, but I can I feel this was pretty accurate. It had like 6 of the leading spaghetti sauces on the public market, and it had a graph that showed how much sugar. It was like an ounce jar, all of them is the same amount, and it showed how much sugar was in each. And I mean, there was literally almost like 2 cups of sugar in one of them, and it was supposed to be a pasta sauce, a spaghetti sauce, and the most expensive one had a very tiny amount, which is why it's probably the most expensive because probably they have more integrity when they make it, which might be a lot more expensive than just throwing a bunch of sugar in it and adding some tomatoes. But it was fascinating to me, something like that. You buy a tomato sauce, you think, oh, this is great. It's like half the jar is sugar, and we don't really realize that's what we're eating in some cases. And so I think if we can't trust the USDA to prevent that, like how do we avoid that pitfall of bad nutrition? Is it because of work like you're doing, or what can people do to arm themselves with better choices and information?
Well, you bring up a really good point. There is a movement going on. I mean, and I follow it everywhere. I follow all these doctors. I find the people that are the truth tellers, where they are, what they're doing. There is a grassroots movement. We're probably 10 to 15 years away from treating sugar like treating tobacco. You label it, you tax it, take
Mm,
it out of the schools, take it out of the hospitals, public service announcements, train the doctors, news releases, even restrict purchase. I mean, so people can still smoke, but we've reduced smoking from 42% down to 12% in the United States because it took 50 years. Well, same thing for sugar. If you know, all I want to do is give people informed consent. If you want to be sick and spend the last part of your life with doctors and hospitals, then you can eat all the crap you want. But if you really want a healthy life and have fun and be great time in your 80s, 90s, I mean, all you got to do is just make a simple adjustment. Quit eating the stuff that's poisoning you and
mm,
have a great life. So,
yeah.
I just want to give people informed consent. That's all. Informed consent. They can make their own choice.
Another thing that's pretty, I guess, difficult in this situation too is there's a lot of sugar substitutes that are promoted. And in often cases, they are more dangerous than I would say sugar themselves because they're either a chemical or they're something that's sort of manufactured. So, is there anything that you would say is out there for a person who wants to add a sweetness to their food or their beverages that can provide that is not something that is going to harm them? Like, for example, stevia. Is that a product that you would say is okay to consume? Or is there something that you use or that people can use that is a substitute that's healthy?
Yeah, good point. And before I give that answer, just let me tell your audience something. There is good news about quitting sugar. You don't crave it anymore. I don't crave sugar at all. You
Mm,
just hold up an ice cream sundae or a candy bar or cake. I don't even want it. I don't want it. It's not that I feel like I'm limiting myself. It's just you lose those cravings. But there are some sweeteners, and I do use them on time to time. The three that I would say to use, one is a stevia, and that's not my least favorite of the three. The one I prefer is monk oil, MONK oil. It's natural. It comes from a monk fruit. It doesn't trigger insulin spikes. The third one, which is really interesting, there is honey. Small amounts of honey. Honey has a lot of positive attributes, antioxidants, and other things that are
mm,
really good. So I would say a moderate use of honey, monk oil, stevia would be the three. If you just got to have it. Well, I'll give you an example. Sometimes when I'm having a meal and I'm trying this, always, and I like red wine, but I just can't do it every night. It's my go-to vice, but it's occasional.
mhm.
But to jazz it up, I might take what they call agua con gas, carbonated water, put in squeeze some lime juice, and a little bit of monk oil and ice. It tastes like a limeade. So
Yeah.
you can jazz it up, but you know, just try to avoid the sugar.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I do that too, and I'm a person who loves good wine and good meal and, really well-made cocktails, right? And I'm very conscious of the processed ingredients in those things. I'm very serious about that. So I typically will make mine at home. I really would rarely buy things like that out in the restaurants as far as drinks are concerned. Because at home, I'm literally using stevia as a sweetener with real lime
Okay.
juice versus a lime that,
Yeah.
so my point is, I guess it takes more effort for people to try to still enjoy life and do it in a healthier way, but it can be done. And I like that you gave 3 options. I'm saying how I find my workarounds from all the sugary cocktail mixers, and you can do it, but it's more of an effort, which I think is
Well,
people don't make the effort.
it's better doing that than spending all your time with doctors and hospitals,
Right, yeah.
and getting feet cut off, having operations and heart operations. I mean, chronic disease. Let's explain what that is, because it is all largely preventable. And 80% of our healthcare budget, over $3.5 trillion, goes to treat chronic disease. We're talking cancer, chronic heart disease, chronic kidney disease, obesity, diabetes. Uh, we're talking about Alzheimer's, depression. They're all linked to what we eat. It's all proven. And if you want to do those things the rest of your life, you're not willing to make a little sacrifice, then
Mm,
it's your choice. But
mm.
chronic disease is preventable. It's all about what you eat. Let me maybe we can scare some people here, motivate people. Um, right now, in the United States, 74% of people are obese or overweight. 50% of our kids are now obese or overweight. 77% of our young adults can't even qualify for military service. 50% of Americans have diabetes or prediabetes. 18% of our kids have fatty liver disease. That used to be a disease for alcoholics. Now the kids have it.
Hmm.
25% of American women are on STRs. That's the antidepressant drugs. That's because they lack serotonin. Serotonin is produced in your gut biome. If you're not feeding those babies, you don't get any serotonin, you're depressed. So they got to put you on a pill. Young adult cancers are up 79%. 40% of 18-year-olds, kids up to 18 years old, will have some sort of mental diagnosis before they're 18. 80% of medical schools don't even offer course nutrition, and less than 1% of doctors are trained in nutrition. It should be 100% trained. It's less than 1%. The USDA subsidies we talked about, wheat, corn, soy, sugar, rice, all that stuff, it's 82% of the subsidies. 82% of subsidies in the USDA budget. The USDA budget's 0.4% towards organic fruits and vegetables. It should be the other way around. Should be 82% subsidies for organic fruits, vegetables, grass-fed beef, pasture-raised chickens, nutrient-rich soil that's not using herbicides and pesticides. They could reverse that. The money they would save by doing that and feeding people healthily, you could give every American 3 healthy meals a day forever and still save money by reducing healthcare costs.
Hmm.
I mean, it's all there. It's all doable.
When you were just speaking, Rich, about the cost of how it would be cheaper in the long run to produce healthier food and then, provide healthy meals to Americans. There is a disconnect, though, unfortunately, what I've noticed, which is it seems healthy foods or to eat healthy is more expensive. And even when it comes to like, you go into a grocery store and, things that are quote organic are like 2 or 3 times more than just the tomato that's probably full of pesticides and full of crap. Or if you go to fast food restaurants, for example, they're not really that great to begin with, but they offer a dollar menu in some cases where you can really get a whole bag of crap for like $1. Shouldn't call it crap, but it basically is a bag of probably the most unhealthiest stuff, but it's like $2. And economically speaking, for a family that is not doing well in the financial sphere, in the middle class, so to speak, that is what is attracting them to that type of menu. So I don't know where there's a disconnect between being able to produce that kind of food for the public, the mass consumption, but then the consumer being able to afford the healthier stuff. Because I see a disconnect there. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, you're right and you're wrong. You're right that healthy food can cost more, but for instance, with vegetables and fruit, you don't have to do the organic. I mean, the biggest first step is getting sugar and processed foods out of your life.
Mhm.
Okay. And it's really not that expensive to make a salad. Forget the organic side for now, but just make a nice salad and then maybe top it off with a little bit of chicken or some seafood or a little bit of meat, whatever, or add some cheese into it. Or I make 30 different kinds of salads. I'm always challenging myself to do something different, make it interesting, taste good. And so you can eat very healthily, and interesting enough, you'll eat less because your
Mm.
appetite. I eat now one meal a day typically, sometimes two, and I feel great
Mhm.
energy, not hungry, because your body doesn't need all that excess crap. And remember, sugar and processed foods do not feed you; they just make you sicker and hungry and worse.
Right.
So it's and also think about this: if you're not eating healthy, you're going to pay for it with your doctor bills and going to the hospitals and being out of work. So all that costs you even more.
Mhm.
But once we get this figured out in Washington, once the government starts telling us the truth, we can make these adjustments. They can change incentives where it's all very, very affordable. But it doesn't really cost that much to make a salad or buy a little bit of fruit, or to throw some meat into your salad. I mean, you can certainly do it. Uh, and I talk in one of my last chapters in my book is I had this thing about the futuristic future, how the future is going to look, because it's all about capitalism, supply and demand. If now the demand is for healthy eating, instead of McDonald's, you might have a chain of restaurants called McHealth. Maybe you have Keto King.
Right, right.
Maybe you incentivize everybody in the United States to start growing their own fruits and vegetables. If you've got a rooftop, or if you got a backyard, or if you have a balcony, grow something. I mean, start teaching it to people. Be mandatory in school. Get everybody involved. You grow excess food, the trucks will come and pick it up, pay it some coupons, and get everything towards preventive medicine and get us healthy and all working together. It's very doable. We can't afford the path we're on, but we can certainly afford to get healthy.
Well, listen, I definitely appreciate you being an advocate for making sure people are aware of this, especially younger generations. And so it's an important conversation to have, and all the nuances between how the agricultural industry and food industry is tied to our health and wellness. So definitely thank you for all the wonderful insight and words of wisdom today. Rich Holman, author of Killing You Softly, and that book is out now, right? It's already out?
It's out. It's on Amazon and Ingram, so you can get right off. You can get there was a Kindle version and the hard copy. Uh, I like to do the hard copy. I'm still a reader, but
Mm,
it's both versions. So
okay.
you know,
Super.
just spread the word. We're all in this thing together, Corey,
Yeah,
and we all need to help each other. So
absolutely.
my heart is out to the people and the kids, and we can do this. We're in it together.
Absolutely. We appreciate that and appreciate your time today. We're going to make sure that the link to buy your book is in the show notes when the podcast airs. And Rich Holman, thank you so much for being a guest today with me on Motivational Mondays.
Thank you, Corey. Great meeting you.